Hi, this is Jeff Healey.
So this is Jeff Hightower. Got a guest in today. Many of you know him from feature films such as Roadhouse and the chart-topping hit Angel Eyes. He's known to the world as a blistering blues rock guitarist, and more than that, he's a student of early jazz music. I'd like to thank him for sitting down and talking with us and letting us get a lot closer look at Jeff Healey. So it's glad to have you here today, Jeff.
Thank you.
So we're sitting here with Dr. Jeff Healey. I use the term doctor because you were awarded a doctorate of letters from McMaster University.
Correct.
How does it feel to have reached such a high honor among your peers like that?
Well, it was quite a shock. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just one of those things that happened. Wasn't expecting it at all, and that said, I suppose it probably was one of the more meaningful awards that I've had, because it was so, I assume, unbiasedly chosen for the reasons outside of the entertainment industry, which is extremely fickle and very political and very cynical.
Yeah, well, it's. I think they've made a very good choice. Again, we talk about your love of jazz and whatnot, and it seems to be the closest genre to your heart. And it's been said that you have over 25,000 78s of the early 20s and 30s jazz music in your record collection.
Yeah, it's about 30,000.
About 30,000. Okay, well, what is it about jazz that speaks to you? I mean, why jazz?
Well, it's not even so much jazz as it's the era. I have been collecting, I suppose, almost equal to, I've also been fascinated by history, particularly the history of the 20th century in the Western world for the most part. And so, of course, along with that goes the music. And so, it's just been a lifelong fascination. And certainly jazz was very much a part of what drove everything, society to a certain degree, popular music to a great degree. From the teens till the swing era, and so it's just always been a constant fascination. And I've always collected the recordings. I've also got about 4,000 or 5,000 CDs of reissued material, and there's a lot of radio broadcasts from that time period and so forth that have come out, and it's ongoing. I continue to search out the records and build the collection, as it were, and improve it.
Yeah, it's good to have a healthy dose of our past and where things come from and whatnot.
Yeah.
Now, you released your first jazz album back in 2002 called Among Friends. Were you happy with the change from the blues rock and commercial era into the jazz format where you
Well, what I was most happy with is that I had control over what I was doing and was able to record things that I wanted to do. And, I suppose left to my own devices, I wouldn't have done what I ended up doing from the late 80s through the 90s. And about 4/5 of what I did through there I'm not too happy with anyway. So, it's best kind of to move on from that and to do what I want to do. And, so those that really want to find out who Healey is, apart from checking out the website, can sort of investigate Among Friends and Adventures in Jazzland and the music from that time, and that kind of gives you a little better idea of, what I look at as real music.
Yeah, speaking of which, my next question was going to be, tell me more about the Jazz Wizards. Example, Tara Hazelton is now singing with your group, and the new album Adventures in Jazzland. What do we expect from that album? What type of jazz sounds are we?
Well, I have no idea what people would expect, but it's it's more what's loosely and yet more appropriately termed traditional jazz. That is to say, it's popular music done with loads of improvisation from that time period of the 20s and 30s. And I try to, the albums actually, there's the Jazz Wizards, which is a live act, and I'm actually working as we speak on a live album of the band. And then there's the two previous studio albums, which aren't really the Jazz Wizards. That is just an amalgamation of sessions that I put together with a lot of friends of mine internationally, and whoever I was able to get to come up at different times and play. And we would just go in the studio, not really knowing what we were going to do, and knock out a bunch of tunes and have some fun.
Oh, great. So, are we able to hear any of your material? And I know you have a radio program, internet radio, called My Kind of Jazz on Jazz FM 91,
Yeah.
Which I listened to the other day and enjoyed very much. So, heard a lot of the older jazz, like Little Buttercup. And are you planning on playing some of the stuff from your new jazz albums on this?
No. First of all, I don't play anything past the recording ban that occurred in 1942, and we don't need the long story on that. But the intent of the show is to play music from its initial inception, from the teens through to the 40s. And so I not only don't I play my own stuff, but I don't play anything of a recreational type value or idiom from 50s onward.
Well, I had the opportunity to listen to it the other night, and again, like I said, I greatly enjoyed it. It was a eye-opening experience, and really, taught me some more about the jazz, and a growing fascination with it.
Right.
Now, in Jazz Wizards and some of your other bands and whatnot, you play guitar and trumpet, I understand.
Yeah.
What other instruments do you bring to the table, and what else is in your arsenal?
Well, I've always been a dabbler on different instruments throughout all my life. I have some training in piano, for what that's worth, and I can bang out enough chords on the thing to accompany myself or other people, and I can play drums and bass, and I've never been able to master the reed instruments, but most things past that I at least give a shot at.
So you just being a well-rounded, you try as much as you can.
I suppose so, yeah. And I think it's important for anybody to consider themselves a musician to at least have a working knowledge of as many instruments as possible. It doesn't mean you have to be completely competent or proficient on them, but at least to have an idea of what they do and how they do it in order to work with other players on those instruments.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've been playing since you were 3, and then I understand you started playing nightclubs around the age of 14.
About that.
What was it like to play in an environment at that age in more of a grown-up scene like that?
I didn't really I don't know how to describe it. I was just, always eager to play music, and it didn't matter what age the people were that I was playing with, or the people that were listening or whatever. Looking back on it, I suppose it does seem kind of strange, and I know I've seen younger performers in the last decade or so who were in their teens or early 20s who were playing with people much older, and I thought, geez, it'd be nice if they had a chance to play with mostly people or kids their own age. And I suppose I did a bit of all of the above. I was in school bands from the academic to the hobby, and little school rock bands and things. And so it just was all sort of an ongoing learning experience, I suppose, is the best way to chalk it up.
Okay. And a little bit more history. You started out on the guitar, and your father was the one that kind of, I guess, got you started by teaching you different tunings on the guitar. What type?
Not really different tunings. He only knew to tune the thing to a chord, and suggested that I do that. And we didn't know anything about standard tuning or anything like that. And so with a chord, of course, the best way to alter the pitch of the chord was with a slide, which is how I had started out. And it's not that I picked the thing up and, was any Jerry Douglas or anything, but I bashed around on the thing. I still do. And it's, again, every day is a learning experience. And somewhere along the line, when I was 7 or 8, I guess, I learn standard tuning and just figured that if you could hold the guitar and put the slide over top, and some people I'd also knew put, at least one finger or so over the top of it for playing altered chords things. I figured, well, you can put the whole hand over top. And I think, innocence and naivete are such a special thing within a child, and children sometimes have far more of a logical and improved idea to how to do things than what adults do. And so this is what I ended up doing.
Okay. And just to get an idea, we talk about influences, whatnot, and anybody that knows me knows that you were an influence on me, and that people like Louis Armstrong were influences to you and whatnot.
Music in general, I've always been an avid listener, and I grew up on, aside from all of what we discussed, I grew up on a lot of traditional country music. Particularly Johnny Cash and Hank Williams and that sort of thing, and all that kind of idiom as well. And
I heard your version or on your radio program, the Jimmy Rogers version of the old jazz classics, and I can see where you can cross them over and whatnot.
Well, certainly, there is a correlation, I suppose. But but that aside, I've just always been a music listener and kind of absorbed things, like a sponge, I suppose, as trite as it sounds.
One thing I do want to touch on, I was reading over your website again at jeffhealey.com, and it reads that Oscar Peterson, who you thought a lot of at one time, said that you were limited playing your lap style type of guitar.
Well, he thought, in his opinion, that would be the case. And, first of all, he was used to, some of the masters of the guitar that he worked with. Of course, Joe Pass and Herb Ellis and Barney Kessel and these sort of people who, rightly so, in his opinion, could do no wrong, and they held the guitar in the traditional fashion, and he felt that, that would be the only way that it could be done. And it's interesting, with him being a piano player, that he wouldn't have seen the potential benefits to an extra finger, but nonetheless, as far as I know, and I could be wrong on this, Oscar is a piano player exclusively, and so I don't know if he is as aware of other workings of the instrument. And again, I could be wrong, and if he ever hears this, I hope he accepts my later apology. But that's my understanding, and so he might not know the complete workings of the guitar. God, I don't know the complete workings of the guitar, but what I do, it seems to work, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, well, mainly, I saw that when I read that as, turning the criticisms or the advice of other musicians into a learning experience for yourself, which is something that all other musicians in the world can take lesson from. Turning a negative into a positive.
I've probably done that in more ways than one throughout the majority of my life.
Most definitely. Another quote is talking about how much you're consumed by music. You say, "It's just what I do. It's like breathing." And you go on to say that you're into music not to be an icon or anything of that nature, but you're in it for the passion of music more than the money or the glory. And you would say that is the reason to be in music. A lot of your younger artists dream of the money and fame and fortune and whatnot.
Well, the older ones do too. Why in the hell are the Rolling Stones still out there doing whatever it is that they're doing? When I suppose there's an audience to it, but my God, on a creative side, they haven't really done anything, for what my opinion's worth, in about 25 years. And yet, there's still the audience there, and they continue to trundle out there every 4 or 5 years and give them the same old show. And so there's a lot to be said too for the public's. I can't even come up with the words. Just their what it is that the public will buy or want at some point. And but that's a whole other story unto itself. I mean, it's interesting that to show how little music has changed and evolved in the last 30 some odd years. It's nothing to hear music from the mid 60s, the early 60s, the late 50s on a continuous basis, on oldie stations and so forth. And you have to realize that this is 40 to 50 years ago. Now, back in the mid 70s, if you played music that was 40 to 50 years old, it certainly was not in prime time. It was not on any sort of major radio stations, and it was considered archaic. So there's been very little change, over the last 20 to 30 years in music. It's all very much the same, which is kind of disheartening to a degree for those that may be looking for, a new direction or what have you. But, myself, I don't really pay too much attention as, once again back to sort of where we started. My interests have always been sort of more 20s and 30s related.
All right. And I assume that's part of why Heliophonics Records got started up, and why you shy away from the bigger labels, so that you can...
Well, that's other apples and to oranges, but actually what I have done now, Heliophonic has sort of come and gone, and it was just something to put my album and Tara's album out on at the time. I had started a little independent label with an independent book publishing company, which we called Sensation. And it just turned out that I was doing most of the work, and they flipped some of the bills, but I had no degree of interaction with them to really make things work in a manner that I wanted to. And so I figured, well, if I can afford to produce these albums on my own, then I should just take it under my own wing and do it, from scratch. And so I kind of broke with the Sensation idea. We put together Heliophonic. I did those two. It was a learning experience. It taught me that I have no business having my own label. I did it, and it's a hell of a lot of work. And apart from anything else, although I do sort of rail against the politics of the industry, at the moment it cannot be avoided. And so I took the highest road for me that I could find, and I have signed a deal with Stony Plain Records, which is a label that's based out of Edmonton, but is an international label known for traditional music, primarily blues, but a lot of traditional blues to jazz to folk and that sort of thing. And I've known Holger Peterson, the chairman of Stony Plain, for about 20 years, and he's one of the more trustworthy people that I know, and upfront type people, and he's honest. Sometimes his honesty is not met with the most favorable reaction, because some people don't like to to be told honestly what what people think of them. But I've always found him to be a straight shooting guy, and so I'm producing this live album, as I said earlier, for Stony Plain, and we're going to take the two past jazz albums and put them out as part of the Stony Plain catalog, and then sort of continue from there.
Good deal, good deal. Okay, changing gears here a little bit. I understand that you've opened your own nightclub in Toronto called Healey's.
Yeah.
What brought this about? I mean, why the venture into the nightclub industry?
Well, let me see. I first of all have never been a great fan of traveling, and so that was one thing that kind of led to to that coming about, because I always wanted to play music, of course, but it was just the travel aspect that was really starting to weigh on me. And I've got a family now, and I like to be as close to them as possible, as much of the time. So it also, I suppose, in a roundabout way, it kind of provided a venue for younger acts and so forth to to have a chance to do what they do. We've been very successful with things like Battle of the Bands that we run, and we've had several acts, sort of get their start here, at least Canadian acts that are, pretty well known in this country. So it's been quite a successful, certainly successful from a learning standpoint, venture.
Good deal, good deal. Well, with the nightclub and, of course, you mentioned earlier the newest addition to the Healey household, by the way, congratulations on the birth of your son, Derek. You've decided to restrict touring and whatnot, as you said. Does this put you back into the basics of playing the shows just for the sake of playing music and getting back to your roots?
Well, that's such I'm not trying to shoot you down. That's such an overused sort of term. It isn't even sort of back to the roots. It's just me being me, which is, very important to me.
I understand.
And so, the majority of the shows, I find it laughable, frankly, that, festivals internationally will pay so much money for me and other, old-timers to trot out their old material, when I'm sure most of the others, like myself, are bored sick of it, and you kind of want to move on to other things. Some are not. Some are, so happy to get the constant adulation that it seems to bring, as kind of hard to believe as that is, that they're very happy to keep playing their past things over and over and over and over. So, to each their own.
Yeah.
I suppose, but. Yeah. Primarily, I'm at a point in general where I'm quite happy, doing what I do.
Well, I guess that's the main thing in music, is being happy with what you're doing.
Right.
Okay, I also understand you do a lot of charitable work with the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. Touching on this, as we all know, being equally known for your guitar work as your blindness, how has it been for you to try to break the mold between being stereotyped as a novelty and being Jeff Healey, this great musician?
I don't care. If people want to look at me as a novelty at the age of 40, at this stage in the game, I think we're past the novelty stage. Most people think that I'm this 65-year-old, creaking-legged individual because they just feel that I've been around for so long. And, the fact is I was very young when I got things started, I suppose. So.
Well, there are a lot of like Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder, and a great deal of other blind acts that have just really transcended and became these great musicians, along with yourself, in my opinion.
Well, it's not even that they became; they are great musicians, regardless of whether they're blind or not.
Right.
That's the main thing.
Right. Okay, finally, we're located in Nashville, Tennessee, a pretty good ways away from you, which is literally flooded with musicians.
Yep.
What kind of advice do you think would be beneficial for the independent artist out there who's playing every night, trying to get their own record deal? What, in Jeff Healey's opinion, would help them?
I have no idea. There's no advice anymore that I can offer up that just doesn't sound trite, because I admittedly don't understand the industry, and I mean that in sort of more of a positive way, and I'm not moaning about it. I chose to part ways with understanding the industry. I never really quite understood it to begin with, except that what bits I did think I was understanding I didn't like. And but again, to each their own. So if one wants to become, if you're talking to every person has their own sort of scenario. Those that want to be superstars of a sort, which is actually separate and apart in some ways from great musicians, not always, but sometimes is. It's the right breaks, it's the politics, it's the hand pressing, it's the being at the right place at the right time, and it's the hard work. It is far more hard work to be a superstar than it is to be a good musician. There's no question about that. To maintain it is insane, and takes insanity to do it. And just never understood it. My other two partners, former partners, got a taste of it, in the Healey band, and they always wanted to be superstars, and I never did. And yet it was the Jeff Healey band, so it was kind of counterproductive for them. They should have gone with somebody that, like them, wanted to, to be in that sort of, kind of phony, incredulous world of, adulation that may or may not be genuine and so forth. And it's just ridiculous, I mean, as I said a few minutes ago, I'm now doing what I want to do. I've got my all 10 fingers in so many different pies and different disconnected things one to the other. The only thing connecting them is that I'm involved with them, with the club and a couple different bands, and there's sort of Healey for hire as a sideman here and there, and from anything from commercials to sitting in with bands to whatever, the club and God, on and on. So I just, I'm now doing, every day is an adventure and a fun one, and I couldn't have asked for it to be any other way. I mean, I'm far busier now. Sorry, that's the other line. Than I was when I was supposedly somebody. I mean, in those days, all I did then was play, get horrendously drunk following the show in order to sleep, to get to the next show and play and get horrendously drunk. And that became such a treadmill that was just, people die from it, and I chose to live a better life.
Understandably so. Well, Jeff, it's been an incredible honor to interview you, and from all of us at NaturalRock.net, I'd like to thank you for taking a little time out of your busy schedule and letting us a little bit know more about what your ventures are, and a little bit more about Jeff Healey. Again, you can hear Jeff on Jazz FM 91 at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time for the best in 20s and 30s jazz. You can find this link at his website at www.jeffhealey.com. And if you happen to be in the Toronto area, you can go out and possibly see Jeff play live at Healey's. So, Jeff, it's been a great pleasure to have you here, and we appreciate you taking time to talk with us.
Thank you very much.